Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a beer, it's time for some Path of Exile discussion. So there was a new patch today, 3.16.0D, that included a couple of significant changes to Scourge. So I wanted to go through the patch notes for you, give you a bit of a heads up on what to expect. There was a short period of time after this patch went live where it was crashing the game every time that a large percentage of players tried to log in. I was certainly one of the people who was affected and ended up just not being able to get back in for a while. That does seem to have been corrected now. So it seems like there was maybe a period of half an hour or so where no one could get into the game, or a lot of people couldn't get into the game. Certainly some people were not having problems, but I was. And then that seems to have been corrected and the game is working again. So, firstly, there were some changes to Scourge, where the Scourged items no longer generate downsides that directly counteract their upside. So if you get something like a weapon that deals fire damage to spells, it cannot also have deals no fire damage. You deal no fire damage as a drawback. So this is mostly going to be a good thing. There's a couple of odd cases where it was actually not a drawback to have deal no physical damage on an item. So for instance, if you had an item that dealt purely physical damage, but your character was 100% converting to lightning, then having a physical damage bonus on it and a drawback of deal no physical damage actually didn't matter for you. The drawback did nothing because you were dealing lightning damage, but that was a pretty rare situation, and there's plenty of other non-drawbacks that you could get, like for instance, deal no chaos damage might be a non-drawback for that build as well. So generally speaking, this is an improvement to the process of scourging items. There's been a correction to the map modifier that shifts you into Nightmare on killing a rare or unique enemy. So this is a random chance. This is not 100% to happen when you kill a rare or a unique enemy, and so it's been fixed to clarify that that is the case. It was never 100% chance. It's just that it was an error in the way that it was written out before. Now this one is a good change here. The Scourge map mod that causes you to shift into Nightmare on reaching maximum blood now has a slight drain of blood over time, although the amount of blood lost on killing a Scourge monster has been reduced to 0.4%, and it also causes you to lose all blood when you shift out of Nightmare. This might sound like it's a nerf to these Scourge maps. It's actually a bit of a buff. What they're doing, there's a problem that you could get into where you'd killed everything in the Nightmare realm, but there were still monsters you wanted to kill in the light side of the map. And there was a really frustrating situation because you would get too much blood, so you would end up shifting back manually into the non-Nightmare realm in order to try and kill some of the monsters that are there. And when you did, you would wind up unable to kill more than one or two of them before you were forced back into the Krangle zone. So for that reason, this is being corrected. And now when you manually shift out, you will lose all of the blood. This is actually a really good change for that. The slight bit of blood drain over time, I'll just have to play around with that and see what it feels like. But I expect given that they're calling it slight, I think it'll be pretty minimal. Scourge maps that can shift you into Nightmare on reaching maximum blood can no longer teleport you into an incursion upon shifting out of Nightmare. This is one of those weird combinations of things that I'd never thought of myself, but you could wind up in a situation where you're in an incursion with no way out, because I believe the portal closes, and I believe that once you finish the incursion, like once the timer expires, and if you're still in there at that point, that's a really weird situation. So basically, don't use Elder missions on Scourge maps is what this is saying, but if you do, this is a change that's been made to fix it. But then there's a big change here that has flown under the radar. The Delve Spider Flicker Strike is getting nerfed hard. This is significant. The Delve meta for a long time had been treat resistances, life, and everything as dump stats. Basically, go in there with no durability at all on your character and just basically don't get hit. And that was what you would term a strictly dominant strategy, in that it was just proven to be better than everything else. And so essentially it got to a point for a long time where it was either go glass cannon in Delve or don't play it at all. These Delve spiders that were added, or at least had their Flicker Strike added, was added as a counter to that strategy so that it would no longer be the best strategy for Delve. And it's worked, but it was probably significantly overtuned because those Flicker Strike spiders were brutal. Like, they were hitting so hard. They're now being nerfed so that the intention, I think, will be you still need cap resistances for Delve, but these things shouldn't be killing you. they shouldn't be killing you unless you have built a character in a very unusual way, and then they might be killing you. As it was previously, they really did do a lot of damage. Stagnation map boss had a couple of issues with it. The reason that this was an issue was because they made Stagnation a tier 1 map this league. I don't know why they did that. It's one of those map bosses that's just really quite dangerous, and so they've just gone and nerfed the boss and dealt with an issue with the exploding pods where they could kill you after you kill the boss as well. I think the intention is that if you're at full life and you take a hit from that, it shouldn't kill you. It should just perhaps hurt a little bit. But I've heard of people who have killed the boss, gone and done a Conqueror, come back out, and because the outside map has been paused while they've been fighting the Conqueror, they've moved and then they've ripped to the exploding pods. So that's a bit ridiculous. When you exit a Conqueror room, you're probably exiting at full life, and so that's a silly situation to have a sort of surprise, haha, you're dead moment. So change to the rank 1 defenses crafting bench options. So this is things like tier 1 increased armor, tier 1 increased energy shield. Nice to have these be affordable when you're leveling, so they're 4 transmutes rather than 6 ults. 6 ults is a fairly significant cost when you're leveling. 4 transmutes isn't, at least once you pass Act 1. So that will be an improvement there. And then for some reason they've got a line about fixing a microtransaction. Now there are a number of bugs. So these vary a lot in their significance. So they start from the extremely obscure. Sentinels of Absolution summoned through Intuitive Link were broken. So I'm sure that someone figured that out just by using a weird combination of skills, but that's probably affected exactly one person this league, and that one person was probably messing around to find bugs. Then there's things that are a bit more annoying to large numbers of players, like Plaguebearer displaying an incorrect maximum value on the skill bar tooltip if you'd allocated the passive mastery. So it wasn't recognizing the passive mastery when on the tooltip. But then there's some more annoying things that were probably going to affect a lot more players. Ray Spectre was sometimes hitting the wrong targets, and Tempest Shield was turning itself off after you logged out, which is just frustrating because all your other auras work correctly. Then you got things like, things that are really obscure, like Mirage Archer being able to support Power Siphon, but just actually breaking it, and a couple of other little things. The lethality notable passive was not affecting range skills, and this is a big deal for Toxic Rain, I believe, so that's going to be a fix that will be really significant. Then there's something that's a little bit nastier. Now, this is only going to affect a very small number of players. If you are playing a build that is using Ignite, and that uses a veiled mod from a bow. So you're using a rare item on a bow, a rare bow for Ignite. This is a really strange situation because Zoph's Nurture is really good, and most builds that play Ignite do use Zoph's Nurture. But if you're in a weird situation there where you are using a rare bow, there was a bug where rare bows were actually better than intended for Ignite, and that's been fixed. So that's going to be disappointing for some people because this was done with very little notice on it. Then there's just a couple other things where there were a bunch of bugs related to various map bosses and the like that were just frustrating rather than particularly meaningful. And probably the most significant thing here, other than fixed to instance crashes, which is always a good thing to see, at least assuming that they're the common ones that have been annoying people this league, fix a bug where monsters in Nightmare could prevent discovered hideouts from being fully cleared. Like, that would have been so frustrating to be in a situation where you found one of the rarer hideouts and you couldn't get it because there were monsters hidden in the Nightmare there. So that's been fixed, and that will be a very welcome change, although too late probably for a couple of people. That's all there is, 3.16.0D. So in terms of major changes, really, it's the change to Scourged items no longer being able to have drawbacks that directly affect their upside. So basically be some sort of mod grouping setup that'll be used there. And some of the changes to Scourge maps that will be mostly about not really changing the difficulty of them, but changing the feel of them, changing the flow of them to be a little bit better than they have been. May your Varlobs have interesting results, and I'll see you around.